Welcome to Lantern and Lullaby. I'm so glad you've chosen to spend this quiet evening here. Before tonight's journey begins, allow yourself to become comfortable. Let the day fade gently behind you, and let your breathing settle. Tonight, rain will guide you through a sleeping city, towards a hidden museum that appears only while the storm continues. Beyond its doors, forgotten rooms, living gardens and quiet machinery wait beneath the rain. So, whenever you're ready, the hidden passage is opening, the rain is falling softly, and our story begins. Rain has been falling long enough to alter the city. Stone has darkened, gutters have filled, and every window has acquired a second life in the pavement below. From beneath a closed shop awning, the street appears almost weightless, built from reflections and flowing water. No cars pass, no footsteps disturb the shining road. Only the rain continues, joining roof to railing, railing to curb, and curb to drain. Across the street, a covered arcade stands open where you remember a locked gate. Its glass roof glimmers through the weather, and the sound of water upon it reaches you like a distant room already waiting. A loose poster frame taps against a wall somewhere beyond sight. Even that small sound is absorbed before it can travel far. The arcade receives you beneath iron ribs and rain-streaked glass. Closed shop fronts line the tiled passage, their displays hidden in shadow. Water runs overhead in long silver courses, gathering at the gutters before spilling into stone basins. The deeper you walk, the less the city seems to matter. Streetlights fade behind the entrance. The tiled floor curves where it should continue straight. Around that bend, the familiar arcade narrows between two shuttered buildings. A passage has appeared there, unmarked and rain-dark, descending by 3 shallow steps. A covered clock hangs above one junction, its face turned too dark to read. Beyond it, the glass roof bends into a section you have never noticed before. The opening is too narrow for a doorway and too deliberate to be an accident. Brick walls rise close on either side. Copper pipes descend between them, carrying water from unseen roofs. Each step holds a thin pool reflecting the pale sky above. The arcade remains behind you, though its columns already seem farther away than they should. Nothing glows, nothing invites. Yet every small stream on the ground is traveling in the same direction, down through the passage and into the darkness beyond. The brick carries the scent of soot and wet mortar. Somewhere ahead, water falls into a larger space and returns as a soft echo. The brick walls release you into a hidden courtyard. Rain covers the flagstones in a shallow sheet, breaking into rings wherever it lands. The surrounding buildings have no doors at ground level. High windows sit dark above, blurred by water. At the far end stands a broad wall of pale stone. It has no arch, no handle, no opening of any kind. Still, the rain moves towards it. Fine currents cross the courtyard, ignoring the drains and gathering at the wall as though drawn there by something beneath the surface. A thin overflow runs around your shoes without touching them. The pale wall ahead holds the only stillness in the entire courtyard. Closer to the stone, the the water begins to reveal depth. A seam darkens, then another. Rain traces the outline of a column hidden within the masonry. A second appears beside it. An arch forms between them, followed by tall windows and broad steps. The building is not rising from the courtyard. It is being uncovered. Within moments, the blank wall has become the facade of an immense museum, its upper stories disappearing into the rain. No name is carved above the entrance. The rain itself has provided all the explanation the night intends to give. Bronze frames divide windows that had not existed a moment earlier. Water pours from their ledges as though the building has stood through centuries of storms. The newly revealed steps lead beneath a deep bronze canopy. Water travels through leaf-shaped channels in the metal and falls into smooth stone basins on either side. The sound changes under shelter. What was open rain becomes a low metallic hush held in the canopy above. Beyond the columns waits a tall revolving door of curved glass and aged bronze. Water moves inside the glass panels in narrow vertical streams. Before you reach it, the mechanism begins to turn. The steps are worn at their centers, though no one else is present. Rainwater slips from your route and joins the basins before reaching the dry threshold. One empty compartment rotates into place. The curved glass gathers the courtyard, stretches it, and carries it slowly behind you. For a few seconds, rain exists on both sides of the door. Outside, it falls through the courtyard. Inside, it travels through sealed channels in the glass. At the center of the turn, the city disappears from sound. The bronze frame passes overhead. Then the opening reaches a dry limestone vestibule, warm with stored heat and faintly scented with stone, wood, and rainwater. For an instant, your reflected surroundings separate into layers of stone, water, and bronze, but no human outline appears among them. The vestibule contains dark benches, an empty iron umbrella stand, and a patterned floor of cream and charcoal tile. No coats hang from the brass hooks. No wet footprints cross the room. The museum has prepared for visitors without leaving any sign that visitors have ever come. Beside the inner doors stands a broad stone basin. A thin stream descends into it from a copper pipe. At the center of the bowl, the water is beginning to gather around a clear shape. Rainlight from the revolving door drifts across the walls in slow, wavering bands. The room feels less empty than carefully paused. The water circles once and folds towards the middle. A transparent disc rises beneath the surface. Each falling drop adds to it without causing a ripple. Its edge becomes smooth. Its center clears. When the shape is complete, the stream stops and the remaining water drains away. The disc stays behind, solid now, though it has been made from nothing but rain. There are no words or markings upon it. The museum has issued no ticket and requested no payment. Light passes through the disc and breaks into pale fragments across the basin. They fade as soon as the object begins to rise. clear disc lifts from the basin and settles into a matching hollow beside the inner doors. Water spreads through narrow veins in the surrounding limestone. A sequence of hidden bolts withdraws inside the wall. The doors part at the center. They are thick, dark, and older than the vestibule around them. Through the widening gap appears a hall vast enough to contain several buildings. Rainlight descends from somewhere high above. The token remains in the stone, holding the entrance open. The first breath of air from beyond is cooler and carries the mineral scent of deep pools. The vestibule behind you suddenly feels very small. The central hall rises through many levels beneath a glass dome veiled by rain. Pale columns climb towards balconies and distant bridges. Long pools divide the floor into islands of limestone. Water descends along copper chains, collecting around each link before falling into the pools below. There is no reception desk. No barrier blocks the way. No sign tells you where to begin. The museum appears to trust that anyone, admitted by the rain, will find the correct route. Dark wooden cabinets stand between the columns, their contents hidden by distance. The only movement comes from water and the faint shifting of rain across the dome. A broad staircase curves around the largest pool, but the water beneath it continues through a lower arch. You follow the channel instead. The ceiling drops. The great hall recedes behind you. Copper pipes cross the walls, beaded with condensation. Ahead, dark glass panels line a narrowing corridor. Within them, isolated droplets hang motionless in the air. The first collection begins before any doorway announces it. Low lights set into the floor accompany the channel around a circular column. Their reflections stretch and shorten as the water bends. The corridor opens into a slate-colored hall filled with suspended rain. Thousands of droplets float at different heights. Some are no larger than mist. Others resemble clear glass fruit. Within each one, a place receives rain for the first time. A dry field darkens. A new lake trembles. Water touches the roof of a remote station. The scenes are too small to study for long, but their scents escape into the gallery. Warm earth, pine bark, cold stone. This is not an archive of storms. It is an archive of beginnings. The channel beside the path becomes still enough to double the collection below. For a moment, the hall seems to continue downwards without end. Farther on, the droplets become larger spheres held inside bronze rings. Each contains a complete weather system. Clouds gather above a green valley and release rain in moving bands. Mist covers a harbor until only rooftops remain. A moor fills with shallow pools beneath a low grey sky. The storms continue to change. Clouds thicken. Water rises. Miniature trees bend and recover. Nothing has been frozen into a single moment. The museum preserves weather as something living. A pale flash appears inside one sphere, followed much later by a tremor too faint to be called thunder. The weather obeys its own time, path enters a circular chamber built around a sunken floor. Bronze bowls of different sizes rest upon low stone plinths. Water falls from the darkness above. One drop strikes a broad vessel and produces a note deep enough to travel through the floor. Another reaches the rim of a smaller bowl and rings beneath the ceiling. The pattern is too slow to become music. A tone arrives. Rain fills the pause. Then another note answers from the far side of the room. The building seems to be listening with you. Mineral stains beneath the bowls show where generations of drops have landed. Nothing conducts the sequence, and nothing asks for applause. Behind the largest bowl, a narrow opening leads into a glass-walled passage. Fog moves behind the panes. A line of dark trees appears, fades, and returns. Across the corridor, a small bridge forms above unseen water before dissolving into cloud. Farther along, several doorways stand briefly inside the mist. They belong to houses, gardens, and stations that never fully emerge. Condensation traces winding paths down the glass. The museum preserves fog without forcing it to reveal everything it contains. The shapes never become frightening or urgent. They come close enough to be recognized, then withdraw before memory can name them. The mist thins before a round, insulated doorway. Beyond it, snow falls inside a circular glass enclosure. Broad flakes descend through silver birch. Fine, dry snow crosses a high mountain night. Wet flakes settle on dark branches above an unfrozen stream. The glass holds back the cold, though a faint chill remains in the stone. No footprints mark the exhibits. No creature disturbs the trees. Outside the enclosure, rain continues across the museum roof, reminding you that winter has been brought inside without replacing the night beyond. Small vents release the scent of pine and clean ice. Each snowfall keeps its own pace, untouched by the seasons outside. A dark passage curves away from the snow vault and slopes underground. At its end stands a chamber of enormous stone vessels. Some are granite, others are slate, limestone, or porous black rock. Heavy lids seal their openings. From the nearest vessel comes a muted roll that travels beneath the floor. The thunder has lost every sharp edge. It resembles a storm, remembered from a safe room many years ago. Another vessel answers from farther away. The museum has not collected lightning. It keeps only what remains after the flash has gone. Shallow water in the joints of the floor quivers with every stored rumble. Between them, the chamber returns to an extraordinary depth of silence. A pale stare climbs from the thunder chamber towards an unexpected warmth. At the top, glass doors open into a conservatory filled with rain and daylight. The sun itself is hidden. Its light arrives through high cloud, turning each drop into a brief thread of color. Ferns, citrus trees, and pale grasses line the path. Muted rose, gold, sage, and violet move across the stone floor. The colors never become bright enough to overpower the garden. They exist only while the rain is falling. Rain gathers on the citrus leaves and falls from their tips into narrow channels. The garden feels suspended between a morning that has passed and one not yet begun. The conservatory path rises onto a glass bridge high above the central hall. Rainwater travels beneath the transparent floor through hundreds of narrow channels. Each stream carries a different muted color into the space below. Far beneath, copper chains feed the entrance pools. Across the upper balconies, new galleries wait. An old railway platform rests beneath a soot-dark roof. A hotel lobby glimmers beyond brass-framed doors. A theatre curtain hangs inside a chamber of red shadow. These are rooms the world once used and then left behind. At the far end of the bridge, the rain disappears into the wall, leading onward into the gallery of forgotten rooms. The bridge reaches the opposite balcony, beneath a ceiling washed in traveling light. Beyond it, the atmosphere changes from weather to memory. The bridge settles behind you, and the colored rain fades from the glass beneath your feet. A soot-darkened roof stretches over an old railway platform preserved inside the museum. At one side stands a waiting room with frosted windows, wooden benches, and a small iron stove burning without smoke. Rain taps across the roof above the platform, softer here than beneath the museum dome. A brass luggage rack stands empty. An umbrella leans in no corner. No timetable remains on the walls. The room has been saved without its instructions. Through the glass, the track disappears into a tunnel of painted darkness. The stove gives off enough warmth to dry the nearest floorboards. For a while, the room contains everything a journey needs except departure. A side door opens from the waiting room onto a preserved dining carriage resting beside the platform. Dark green panels and brass fittings gleam beneath the roof. Inside, small tables stand beneath shaded lamps. Plain china waits on white cloths, and water remains perfectly still in narrow glasses. Rain trails down the carriage windows, bending the platform lights into long, wavering lines. A service bell rests beside one plate, but no one reaches for it. The carriage does not move. Even so, the reflections outside drift slowly backwards, as though the museum remembers travel better than stillness. At the far end, a connecting door stands open. Beyond it, the carriage gives way not to another train, but to the tiled floor of a seaside hotel. The carpet ends at a strip of black and white tile, and the air acquires the faint taste of salt. An Edwardian hotel lobby opens beneath a high stained glass ceiling whose colors have faded almost to gray. Palms rise from glazed ceramic pots. Brass luggage trolleys wait beside a broad staircase. Through the front windows, rain crosses an empty promenade and turns the distant sea into moving slate. The reception desk is present, but its pigeonholes hold no keys. A silver bell sits untouched beneath a shaded lamp. The lift cage stands open, its polished gate folded aside. The room feels maintained for a guest who has been delayed by more than weather. A corridor beside the staircase leads towards a pair of padded doors. Behind them, the darkness of an old theatre waits. The padded doors close on the hotel lobby, and the floor slopes gently downward. Rows of red seats descend towards a stage, framed in dull gold. The theatre has been preserved after its final performance. The curtain is closed. Rain murmurs across the unseen roof, joining the small creaks that pass through timber and velvet. Balconies curve above one another in shadow. A few footlights glow along the base of the curtain, not bright enough to suggest that another act will begin. The air carries dust, wax, and the faint coolness of a building left open after midnight. High above the rear seats, a square of pale light marks the projection room. A narrow stair climbs towards it. The stair ends inside a compact room behind the theatre. Two old projectors stand side by side, their metal housings warm from motion. No film passes through them. Still, one lens releases a steady beam across the auditorium. Dust turns slowly inside the light. On the screen below, nothing appears except the faint texture of blank cloth. Reels hang on pegs along the wall, all empty. A work table holds brushes, oil cans, and a pair of white gloves laid flat without hands inside them. The machinery clicks at long intervals, like a clock unwilling to measure ordinary time. At the back of the room, a service door opens into a workshop filled with smaller mechanisms. The projector room narrows into a watchmaker's workshop lined with dark wooden drawers. Clocks cover the walls, shelves, and benches, but none bears readable numbers. Some have blank enamel faces. Others reveal only gears, springs, and slow-moving balances. No two mechanisms keep the same rhythm. Their sounds overlap without forming a single beat. Its smallest wheel turns once, pauses, and turns again. Rainlight enters through a high window and moves across brass filings, tiny screwdrivers, and bottles of clear oil. The room does not appear to repair time. It seems to give damaged minutes somewhere quiet to recover. A curtain of measuring tape marks the doorway into the next workroom. Beyond the hanging tape, bolts of fabric rise in tall shelves beneath a rain-streaked skylight. Wooden forms stand without heads or arms, draped in half-finished coats and evening clothes. The garments are empty enough to remain objects rather than figures. Brass scissors rest beside chalk, pins, and spools of thread. A treadle machine moves slowly on its own, drawing a line through plain dark cloth. The needle rises and falls without urgency. Rainlight alters every color it touches. Blue becomes charcoal. Green becomes almost black. Silver thread flashes once and disappears. A narrow pressing table leads into the warmer scent of leather, paper, and glue. The tailor's cloth gives way to stacks of unmarked paper and sheets of dark leather. Presses stand beneath broad wooden beams. Blank books rest between them at different stages of completion. Some have only folded pages. Others possess stitched spines and covers without titles. Thread passes through small brass guides, drawn by a wheel turning beneath the bench. The rain sounds close again, striking a narrow glass roof above the drying racks. Nothing written has been preserved here, only the craft that allows words to endure. At the far wall, book presses become glass-fronted cabinets filled with bottles, roots, and mineral powders. Dark cabinets climb from floor to ceiling, their drawers fitted with small blank handles. Inside the glass sections stand bottles of colored oil, dried flowers, pale salts, and curled pieces of bark. Any labels have been turned away or washed clean. The room smells of cedar, mint, rain-damp stone, and something faintly bitter. A copper still rests beneath one window. Condensation travels through its coiled pipe and falls into a blue glass vessel. No flame burns beneath it. The museum maintains the process with warmth drawn from hidden pipes. Beyond the cabinets, green light enters from an overgrown glass room. The apothecary floor continues into it without a threshold. Citrus leaves brush the glass above a tiled breakfast room, preserved inside an overgrown conservatory. A long table stands beneath climbing vines. Plain cups, covered dishes, and a silver coffee pot wait on a cloth patterned only by rain shadows. Water runs down every pane. Outside the glass, the museum roof and night sky have disappeared behind leaves. Small lemons hang among dark branches, their color subdued by the weather. The scent of toast lingers without any food remaining warm. A clockwork fan turns near the ceiling and moves the damp air between the plants. At the far end, a round window shows not the conservatory wall, but a stormy sea. A compact study has been built around it. The breakfast room narrows into a lighthouse study no larger than a ship's cabin. A round window fills one wall. Beyond it, rain crosses black water, and a pale beam turns through the night. The study contains a brass lamp, a narrow desk, and a folded chart whose surface shows no markings. Books stand with their spines facing inward. The room does not recreate the tower itself. It preserves the private space where someone once listened to weather between each sweep of light. Timbers answer the wind with low creaks. At the back, a paneled door trembles each time the distant beam passes. When it opens, the sea sound becomes the resonance of strings and polished wood. The lighthouse door opens into a high music room with a piano, cello, harp, and rows of empty stands. Water moves through narrow pipes built into the walls. As it rises and falls, air passes across strings and through hollow chambers. A single piano key lowers. Much later, the harp answers with a short silver note. The cello contributes a vibration too low to become melody. Rain presses a steady background against the tall windows. The room is not performing a composition. It is allowing the building to speak in fragments. Beyond the harp, double doors stand open to a large country house kitchen lit by banked ovens. The music room gives way to flagstones, copper pans, and the stored warmth of old ovens. A country house kitchen stretches beneath beams darkened by years of steam. Long work tables stand scrubbed and empty. Cooling racks hold no bread, though the room carries the scent of flour and browned butter. A kettle breathes faintly on the range. Water gathers in the deep stone sinks and drains through brass strainers. The kitchen appears paused in the hour before servants, guests, or daylight return. Rain reaches the room through a line of high windows and turns the glass pearl grey. At the end of the longest table, a half-open door reveals shelves filled with covered jars and ventilated cabinets. The air beyond changes with every small movement. The pantry is cooler than the kitchen and almost completely dark. Rows of small wooden cabinets line the walls. Each one contains only air and a memory of scent. One vent releases warm bread. Another carries cut apples and cedar wood. Farther along come tea leaves, old paper, extinguished candles, sea salt, summer rain, and wool dried beside a fire. The scents appear one at a time and fade before the next arrives. They pass like rooms remembered without their furniture. Near the final cabinet, a brass key hangs inside a clear case. Behind it begins a corridor where thousands more keys wait. The pantry wall opens into a long corridor, lined with shallow glass drawers. Inside them lie keys of every size and material. Iron keys darkened by rust, small brass keys worn smooth, silver keys made for cabinets, music boxes, gardens, attics, and rooms no longer standing. No tags identify them. Each belongs to a door the world has lost. Farther on, several answer with the faintest movement, though no locks are nearby. The corridor remains quiet enough for each small click to travel ahead. At its end, the ceiling rises into an attic stair beneath a copper dome. The stair climbs through exposed rafters into an observatory built beneath a turning copper dome. Rain runs across the curved roof in branching streams. An old telescope occupies the center of the room. Its brass tube points through an opening where clouds divide for a few seconds at a time. No chart or calculation lies beside it. Through the telescope, the sky appears closer, but not clearer. Rain crosses stars that may belong to another night. The dome turns by a fraction, following no visible mechanism. Along the outer wall, a lower doorway leads into a chamber of miniature stages, boats and houses. The observatory leaves the sky behind and enters the scale of childhood. Glass cases fill the next room from wall to wall. Inside them, wooden theatres raise and lower painted scenery without performers. Clockwork boats circle miniature harbours. Small houses open their shutters as tiny lamps come on inside empty rooms. There are no dolls, figures, or faces. The exhibits preserve motion without pretending that anyone lives within them. A model railway crosses a bridge, disappears into a paper mountain, and does not emerge on the other side. Rain drums on the sloping attic roof and gives the machines a common rhythm. At the far end, the cases stop before a pair of tall mirrored doors. They open onto a ballroom, held in perfect stillness. The ballroom extends beneath chandeliers, whose glass drops hold the rain light. Mirrored columns divide the walls, reflecting only architecture, candles, and polished floor. No figures appear within them. The room has been preserved between dances. Chairs stand against the walls. One balcony door remains open to the cool night. Rain-scented air moves the curtains by a few inches and allows them to settle again. The floor carries faint arcs left by shoes long removed, softened by years of polishing. Nothing here asks the evening to resume. Across the ballroom, a darker gallery glows with lamps of many ages. The ballroom opens into a long chamber filled with lamps rescued before their buildings disappeared. Gas lamps stand beside storm lanterns, desk lamps, shaded reading lights, greenhouse lamps, and small bulbs from forgotten corridors. Each gives off a different quality of light. Some are amber and low, others are pale enough to resemble rain before dawn. None illuminates the whole room. Their separate circles overlap across the floor, like memories shared by neighboring houses. At the far end, one small lamp shines against a bare stone wall. Roots have begun to appear between the blocks behind it. With every pulse of light, the roots spread a little farther. The final lamp dims, and the stone wall answers with a quiet movement. Roots press through the joints and separate the blocks without breaking them. Dark soil appears in the widening seams. Fern tips uncurl where masonry had been a moment before. The wall does not collapse. It parts like two heavy curtains drawn away from a landscape. Cool air enters carrying moss, wet bark, and distant falling water. Beyond the opening, a path descends into a ravine of giant ferns beneath a ceiling too high to see. Memory gives way to something living. The museum's living earth wing begins where the last stone leaves the path. The opened wall closes around the path until stone and memory are left behind. The descent enters a ravine crowded with giant ferns. Their fronds overlap above the walkway, holding beads of water along every rib. Black rock rises on both sides, cut by thin falls that turn to mist before reaching the floor. The museum roof is nowhere visible. Only the rain remains, traveling through leaves, stone, and unseen channels high above. The path follows a stream no wider than a handspan. Its water is clear enough to reveal pale roots gripping the rock beneath it. Each step carries you farther from preserved rooms and deeper into something still growing. The fern path bends beneath an arch of roots and enters a vast chamber shaped by moss-covered columns. Stone pillars rise like tree trunks into a vaulted darkness. Green growth softens their edges until architecture and forest are difficult to separate. Water moves through the chamber in narrow vertical threads. Where it strikes hollow stone, a low note travels between the columns. No instrument has been placed here. The rain and the building have simply found the same pitch. A raised walkway crosses the center beneath curtains of moss. Beyond the final column, small circles of warmer rainfall shine upon a garden floor. The moss gives way to a series of low stone terraces. Each terrace holds a different flower growing beneath its own column of rain. Some blooms are pale and cup-shaped. Others carry deep rust, faded violet, muted blue, or cream. None is marked by name. The museum has preserved their living forms without turning them into specimens. Water falls only where each plant requires it, leaving the paths between them dry. A faint fragrance changes as you pass from one terrace to the next. At the far edge, petals have collected beside a dark gate woven from orchard branches. The branch gate opens into an orchard beneath a silver artificial moon. Fruit trees stand in long, quiet rows, their leaves almost black against the light. Pale fruit hangs among them, brushed with rain and soft as old ivory. Fallen blossom rests on the ground without decaying. Narrow channels carry water from tree to tree, turning at each trunk before continuing. The air holds the scent of wet bark, pear skin, and cold grass. Nothing stirs among the branches. Ahead, the orchard darkens where several trunks appear translucent and warm from within. The path enters that amber-colored wood. The living orchard gradually becomes a forest preserved in golden resin. Tall trunks stand clear and luminous, holding leaves, seeds, and bubbles of ancient air inside them. The resin does not glow brightly. It receives the rain light and returns it as a muted honey color. Roots remain visible beneath the transparent bases, frozen in the act of spreading through soil. A narrow boardwalk passes between the trees without touching them. Within one trunk, a suspended leaf still carries a drop of water at its tip. The drop never falls. At the far end, amber gives way to pale mineral light, reflected from a low stone opening. The boardwalk descends through the low opening into a crystal grotto. Quartz rises from the rock in long, natural blades. Pale fluorite and smoky mineral seams cross the walls in restrained colors. Water runs over them rather than spotlights. Every reflection comes from rain moving through the stone. The floor is uneven, but carefully bridged by narrow slabs. Small pools gather beneath the largest formations and hold their shapes upside down. The air is cooler here and carries the clean scent of wet mineral dust. A black river becomes visible beyond the final cluster of crystal. Beside it waits a low, unmanned platform shaped like a narrow boat. platform releases from the bank as soon as you step aboard. It moves without oars or engine along the underground river. The grotto recedes behind, leaving only black water and stone walls polished by centuries of flow. Rain can still be heard above, softened by the depth of the museum. Small gallery openings appear in the rock on either side. Some contain shells, others hold mineral cores, water-worn timber, or layers of pale clay. The river carries the platform around a broad curve. Ahead, terraces of colored pools rise from the darkness, like steps cut into the earth. The platform settles beside the first mineral terrace. Shallow pools climb the cavern wall in natural ledges. Their colors are quiet and earthy: chalk white, muted turquoise, rust, sage, and smoky violet. Water spills from one level to the next in thin, transparent sheets. No pool is perfectly still. Mineral vapor drifts across their surfaces and disappears before reaching the walkway. The root climbs beside them on dry stone steps. At the highest terrace, the floor becomes clear glass. Beneath it lies a tidal landscape moving in slow, moonlit cycles. The mineral steps lead onto a transparent floor, suspended above a living tide pool. Water advances beneath your feet, covering dark sand and retreating again. Shells, smooth stones, and ribbons of seagrass shift with each small wave. The glass is close enough to reveal every ripple, but thick enough to silence the water below. Rain continues somewhere overhead, a distant pattern above the tide. The path curves through the room while the shoreline changes beneath it. At the far side, the transparent floor slopes downward between two immense curved walls. Beyond them, coral branches rise through blue-gray water. The tide pool becomes a corridor inside a living coral hall. Curved glass walls hold a calm underwater landscape on both sides. Coral grows in natural tones of cream, rust, muted rose, sage, and deep brown. Small currents move through seagrass and anemones without carrying fish into view. The architecture remains old stone and bronze, rather than futuristic metal. Rainwater from the museum travels through visible pipes above the glass, cooling the exhibit as it passes. The corridor descends until the water rises higher than the ceiling. A pale arch ahead opens not into deeper sea, but onto dry moonlit sand. The coral corridor ends at the edge of a silent desert. Pale dunes extend beneath a projected night sky. Fine rain falls from hidden openings high above, but evaporates before reaching the sand. The air smells dry despite the steady sound of water. Wind has shaped the dunes into long, smooth ridges. No footprints cross them. A raised stone path winds between the slopes, preserving the surface. Far ahead, the desert meets a line of dark trees covered in snow. The temperature cools with every step until the sand gives way to frost. The desert path enters a preserved winter forest. Snow rests on pine branches and gathers in the hollows between roots. The trees stand inside a broad valley, enclosed by glass too distant to see clearly. Beyond that glass, rain continues across the museum roof. The two weathers overlap without competing. A narrow wooden walkway crosses the snow and avoids leaving any mark. No animal trail interrupts the white ground. The forest grows darker near a stand of reeds where snowmelt has gathered into shallow pools. A faint blue-green light moves beneath their surfaces. The winter forest thins into a marsh of dark water and tall reeds. Low boardwalks cross between wet stones and still pools. Natural bioluminescent algae glimmer beneath the surface in soft blue-green clouds. The light brightens only where water moves. A falling drop opens one brief circle. A reed bends and releases another. Nothing flashes or sparkles beyond what the marsh itself creates. The rain overhead becomes clearer as the ceiling lowers. At the center, mist rises from a round opening surrounded by pale stone. A spiral walkway climbs inside it. The boardwalk reaches the base of a vast cylindrical cloud chamber. Mist forms inside it, gathers into low clouds, and dissolves again. A spiral path climbs around the outer wall at several heights. At the lowest level, the cloud drifts around the railings. Higher up, it becomes thin enough to reveal the chamber floor far below. Rain enters through fine copper nozzles near the roof and feeds each new formation. The temperature changes gently as you ascend. Warm vapor gives way to cool mist. Near the top, the spiral path meets a wooden doorway built around the roots of a living tree. The doorway opens into a seed vault arranged around a single central tree. Instead of steel drawers, the room uses wood, glass, clay, and cool stone. Seeds rest in small transparent chambers fitted into curved shelves. Some are round and dark. Others resemble dust, feathers, folded wings, or tiny pieces of polished bone. None carries a written label. The central tree draws moisture from copper channels beneath the floor. Its roots divide the room into quiet sections. A broad opening between two roots leads downward into a circular hall cut through an ancient trunk. The root passage enters an amphitheater formed from the cross-section of an immense tree. Growth rings spread across the floor in wide concentric bands. The same rings rise in shallow tiers to create seating around the chamber. As you cross them, each band releases a different trace of weather. One carries dry summer grass. Another gives the scent of snow. A darker ring holds smoke from a distant forest fire, long since extinguished. No sound explains the years. The tree records them without commentary. At the center, a narrow stair rises through the hollow core into warm glasshouse air. The stair emerges inside a conservatory of pale night flowers. Large moths move between them beneath a high glass roof. Their wings carry muted cream, charcoal, and brown patterns. They remain distant, crossing the room slowly, without approaching the viewpoint. Rain travels down the panes and gathers in channels around the planting beds. The flowers open only when a moth passes near them. No cage is visible. The entire conservatory has become one carefully balanced habitat. At the far end, cold vapor escapes from a low blue-gray tunnel cut into ancient ice. The conservatory path narrows and enters the glacier cave. Blue-gray ice rises around the passage in layered walls. Air bubbles remain trapped inside it, along with ash lines, mineral dust, and old rain. The light is subdued and natural, traveling through the ice from hidden skylights above. Water moves beneath the floor in a slow, clear stream. The cave is cold without becoming harsh. Each breath of air feels newly washed. Farther on, roots appear inside the ice where no tree should be able to grow. They lead towards a vast, warm chamber beyond the frozen wall. The glacier cave opens beneath the crown of an immense indoor tree. Its trunk rises through several museum levels and disappears into darkness above. Every branch carries leaves responding to weather somewhere beyond the building. One section trembles beneath distant wind, another beads with rain, although the chamber remains dry. A cluster of leaves turns silver under snowfall occurring far away. Copper channels circle the roots and carry water towards the trunk. The tree does not predict weather, it receives it. At the base, a circular doorway has opened between the roots, revealing a lift inside the wood. The circular lift waits within the hollow trunk. Its walls are made from dark timber, glass, and narrow bands of copper. As it begins to descend, the living earthwing rises away above you. Roots pass the glass in thick braided columns. Some hold water, others carry fine threads of light from the galleries overhead. The sound of rain becomes deeper and more mechanical with every level. Natural stone gives way to fitted masonry. Masonry gives way to iron beams, pendulums, and moving chains. The lift settles beneath the roots before a vast hall where the machinery of the museum turns in patient darkness. The curved doors part, and the sound of rain changes into a slow mechanical pulse. A vast hall extends beneath the tree, its ceiling lost among iron beams and braided roots. Pendulums move through the darkness in long measured arcs. Some are made from black stone. Others carry copper weights polished by years of motion. Each swing draws a small current through the shallow water covering the floor. The ripples meet, cancel, and begin again. No clock face explains what the pendulums measure. They appear to keep the museum steady rather than keep the time. Between their paths, a narrow railed walkway leads towards the first turning wheel. The final pendulum moves aside, revealing a wheel taller than the hall behind it. Rainwater arrives through hundreds of copper channels overhead. Each stream falls into a separate bronze cup around the rim. The accumulated weight turns the wheel by a fraction. Water empties below and continues into channels cut through the floor. The engine does not roar. It breathes in wooden creaks, soft metal knocks, and the continuous passage of rain. Smaller wheels take the motion away through shafts, disappearing into the walls. Every gallery visited above is connected to this quiet turning. A stair follows the largest shaft towards a bridge suspended among counterweights. The stair ends above the engine chamber on a bridge of iron grating and dark wood. Counterweights travel slowly on either side. Granite blocks descend as bronze cages rise. Long chains pass through openings in the ceiling without revealing their destinations. The bridge trembles only when two weights cross at the same height. Far below, the rain engine turns with patient regularity. Far above, roots disappear into fitted stone. The movement is immense, but every part remains balanced. At the opposite end, the bridge enters a chamber crowded with valves shaped like metal leaves. Copper stems rise from the floor in carefully spaced beds. At the end of each stem sits a valve shaped like a folded leaf or closed flower. Some open as the water approaches. Others turn aside and send the flow into a different pipe. Condensation gathers along the metal and falls into dark gravel beneath. The chamber resembles a garden until the eye notices that every branch carries pressure. No hand tends it. The valves respond to changes in the rain above, opening and closing with soft clicks. A broad pipe at the center carries the gathered water down through a glass-lined shaft. A spiral stair follows it into the pressure archive below. Tall glass columns stand in rows beneath the valve chamber. Inside them, water rests at different heights. Some columns tremble with the memory of light rain. Others hold compressed air beneath dark caps of stone. When the central pipe releases a measured pulse, silver bubbles travel through the nearest vessel. A low vibration passes along the gallery and disappears into the floor. The archive contains no charts. Pressure is stored here as movement, weight, and silence. At the far end, the glass columns curve around an opening filled by the slow blades of a water wheel. The route continues through the center of its stone nave. The glass gallery releases you into a chamber shaped like an underground church. 3 water wheels turn between stone piers. Rainwater descends over their paddles in broad, transparent sheets. The first wheel drives the museum's lifts. The second moves air through galleries too deep for windows. The third turns more slowly than the others and sends its power somewhere above. A dry passage crosses between them, beneath arches darkened by mist. Every rotation produces a brief wind, carrying the scent of stone and wet timber. Beyond the final wheel, hundreds of leather belts rise through a narrow vertical gallery. Leather belts travel upward through a forest of pulleys. Some move quickly enough to blur. Others advance so slowly that their stitching can be followed. Polished shafts cross the gallery at several heights, supported by dark wooden frames. Drops of oil gather beneath glass guards and return through narrow channels. The machinery carries motion without allowing it to become noise. Only a steady whisper fills the vertical space. A maintenance stair climbs beside the belts, but the route remains level and follows a brass handrail. Ahead, the moving belts vanish behind a circular reservoir whose surface rises and falls like a clock. The reservoir fills an entire round chamber. Its black surface rises by almost imperceptible degrees. A ring of stone floats near the outer wall, connected to chains disappearing above. As the water climbs, the ring lifts and opens distant mechanisms throughout the museum. When the level falls, doors close, lights dim, and preserved weather returns to rest. This is how the building knows whether the rain continues. No hands move across a dial. The storm itself measures the remaining hours. A narrow causeway crosses the reservoir to a pump room built into the opposite wall. Rows of vertical pumps move with slow, alternating strokes. Their pistons are wrapped in dark leather and polished copper. Each one draws water from a different depth beneath the city. Clear pipes reveal brief columns of rising rain before the flow disappears into masonry. The floor is warm from friction. A fine vapor hangs around the bases of the machines. Nothing leaks. Every drop is directed, measured, and returned. At the center, 4 pumps feed a single chamber whose walls expand and contract like a copper lung. A low doorway opens directly into it. The chamber expands by a few inches and releases a long breath. Its walls are formed from overlapping copper plates joined by flexible dark seams. Water pressure from the pumps draws the plates outward. Counterweights allow them to close again. With each cycle, fresh air moves into pipes leading towards the galleries above. The breath carries traces of every wing: wet leaves, snow, old timber, salt, and stone. For one moment, the entire museum seems gathered inside a single current. The next exhalation turns a row of light wooden veins. Those veins lead into a hall where threads of rainwater move through a mechanical loom. The loom fills the hall from floor to ceiling. Fine streams of rainwater descend like transparent threads. Crossing arms of wood and bronze move between them without breaking the flow. Air from the copper lung passes through the woven water and becomes a soft, continuous hush. The museum uses that sound in rooms where silence would feel too complete. Different sections of the loom create different textures. One resembles rain on glass, another becomes water on leaves, a third carries the low murmur heard beneath stone roofs. At the far end, the finished currents disappear into hundreds of narrow pipes beneath the floor. The floor slopes towards a chamber of stone channels and raised bronze gates. Each gate controls a different depth of the museum. Thin streams pass beneath the upper gates. Lower down, dark water presses against doors thick enough to hold a river. Chains tighten and relax as the reservoir level changes. The route follows a dry ledge above the channels. Through openings in the wall, water can be heard traveling towards gardens, snow rooms, glass roofs, and hidden pools. One gate stands open wider than the others. Beyond it, the water drops through a circular shaft onto the blades of a silent turbine. The stair circles a turbine, turning beneath a continuous fall of water. Its blades are broad, dark, and almost completely silent. Instead of driving belts, the turbine produces a faint vibration carried through the surrounding stone. The vibration keeps fragile exhibits from settling into stillness. Suspended droplets remain suspended. Clouds continue to move. The miniature storms retain their changing weather. Every delicate motion above depends upon this quiet wheel below. At the bottom of the stair, the turbine's outflow enters a tunnel leading towards the museum's deepest cistern. The tunnel ends beside a body of water too wide to see across. Stone piers vanish into darkness. The cistern receives every drop after it has passed through the museum. Its surface carries faint traces of the places above. A drifting warmth recalls the conservatory. A cool current comes from the snow vault. Mineral color briefly appears, then fades into black. The water is not discarded. It is allowed to settle until the next storm lifts it through the pumps again. A narrow maintenance platform follows the nearest pier towards a chamber glowing softly beneath the waterline. The passage slopes beneath the black water towards the submerged chamber. Thick glass holds the cistern on both sides. At the center waits a slow circular mechanism built from stone, timber, copper, and glass. Water enters through 4 balanced channels. The mechanism turns once, pauses, and releases the flow upward through the museum. This is not the largest machine below the building. It is simply the one to which all the others listen. Each rotation sends a gentle pulse through the floor. Lights answer in distant shafts. Chains shift. Valves open. The museum gathers itself around the rhythm of its hidden heart. The next rotation arrives later than the one before it. One of the 4 channels narrows. The chamber's lights soften. Across the glass roof, a line of bubbles rises towards the cistern's surface. The rain above is beginning to ease. The museum responds without urgency. Some valves close. Several chains settle into resting positions. A distant water wheel slows by a single turn. Beside the heart mechanism, a narrow column fills with clear water and lifts a bronze float. The rising float releases a service lift hidden within the chamber wall. The lift is smaller than the one inside the tree. Its walls are brass mesh, dark wood, and narrow panes of glass. As it rises, the machinery passes in reverse. The turbine disappears below. Floodgates settle behind stone. The rain loom continues its whisper. The copper lung releases one final measured breath. Higher still, water wheels turn beneath the pressure archive. The lift does not stop at any known floor. It continues beyond the central hall and climbs into levels hidden above the public galleries. At last, pale dawn-colored light appears through the mesh. The doors open onto bare boards and pale stone walls. This floor has not been arranged for visitors. Covered cabinets stand beneath dust sheets. Empty frames lean against columns. Crates contain fragments of rooms not yet rebuilt. Rain taps directly above, through a roof of dark glass. The sound is lighter now, separated into individual drops. A long corridor passes between unfinished doorways. Some open onto darkness. Others contain only wallpaper, a fireplace, or a single window waiting for the rest of its room. At the corridor's end, warm light shows beneath a finished wooden door. Before reaching the finished door, one incomplete room draws the eye. A wooden floor extends halfway across the space and becomes grass beyond its final board. One wall belongs to a cottage. Another carries the tall window of a railway carriage. Rain on the roof adds details one at a time. A hearth appears, then a shelf, then the outline of a bed beneath a sloping ceiling. None of the pieces remain long enough to become a complete place. The museum is still deciding what memory belongs here. When the rain weakens again, the room returns to quiet fragments. The finished door is made from dark wood, softened by years of handling. No handle is visible. A narrow line of warm light rests beneath it. Outside the glass roof, the rain has become a sparse pattern of separate drops. Each one sends a brief reflection along the corridor. The hidden machinery below slows into deeper silence. When the final nearby drop reaches the roof, the door opens inward. Beyond it lies a furnished passage, lit as though dawn has been waiting there all night. The air carries clean linen, tea, old paper, and rain cooling on stone. The museum's last wing begins on the other side. The completed passage curves away beneath a ceiling of pale wood and frosted glass. Soft rugs quiet the floorboards. Low lamps burn behind linen shades, and rainlight moves across framed panels whose surfaces remain blank. Nothing here feels preserved. It feels prepared. The unfinished level has vanished behind the closed door, leaving only the faintest draft beneath it. Along one wall, narrow tables hold bowls of clear water in which the last drops from the roof make widening rings. The lamps do not flicker, yet their light seems to lean gently towards the rooms ahead. At the bend, the passage opens into a room filled with folded cloth and the cool scent of morning linen. Shelves rise from floor to ceiling, stacked with folded sheets, towels, blankets, and pale curtains. Each fabric carries the atmosphere of a room elsewhere in the museum. One fold smells faintly of pine and snow. Another holds salt, wet stone, and distant sea air. A darker blanket keeps the warmth of the railway stove. Nothing is labelled, yet every material seems to remember where it belongs. Fine copper rails run beneath the shelves and release a gentle current of dry air. The cloth settles as the museum's breathing slows. A curtain near the ceiling lowers by a few inches and becomes still, as though the room has finished making a bed no visitor will use. At the far end, a narrow service hatch opens beside a quiet tea room. The tea room is small enough to feel private and bright enough to suggest that dawn has already entered. A kettle rests on a tiled stove, releasing one thin thread of steam. Plain cups stand on round tables beside covered dishes and folded napkins. No meal waits beneath the covers. Only warmth has been kept. Rain taps softly on the high windows, now separated into occasional drops. A silver pot cools on a sideboard, while the scent of tea leaves and toasted grain passes through the room. The chairs face neither window nor door, but one another, preserving the shape of conversation without requiring voices. Beyond a half-open screen, bookcases and deep chairs wait in a reading parlour. The reading parlour is lined with books whose spines face inward or carry no titles. Several volumes lie closed on low tables beside shaded lamps. One opens by itself as air moves through the room, revealing pages without writing. The paper is not empty. It holds the pale impressions of places the museum has remembered and then released. A railway roof appears for a moment in the grain. Then a line of orchard trees passes across the page and fades. A faint smell of binding glue and rain-damp paper lingers after each image disappears. The lamps dim by a fraction as the rain weakens again. At the opposite wall, tall curtains draw apart from a corridor made almost entirely of windows. The window hall runs along the museum's highest outer wall. Glass rises from the floor to the shallow curve of the roof. Beyond it, the city is returning to ordinary scale. Chimneys emerge from mist. Dark roofs lighten beneath the first colourless morning sky. Water still travels along gutters, but the streets below no longer look endless. Inside the hall, shallow channels beneath the windows carry the remaining roof rain towards the museum's lower machinery. Each channel narrows as you walk. The glass reflects only the hall itself, never a figure moving through it. Near the final window, a cabinet room waits with its doors already open. Small objects rest inside open cabinets of dark wood and clear glass. A brass key lies beside an empty service bell. A smooth stone sits near a folded length of silver thread. A plain cup, a clock spring, a shell, and a piece of rain-dark timber occupy separate shelves. These are not valuable relics. They are the small things that allowed the larger rooms to feel complete. For a moment, the objects resemble a quiet inventory of the night. rather than a collection. As the museum prepares to close, each object turns slightly towards the direction from which it came. Hidden drawers slide inward one after another. At the rear of the cabinet room, green dawn light falls through a conservatory door. The conservatory holds the plants that bloom only while the museum is awake. Pale flowers fold their petals around the last traces of night. Citrus leaves release stored drops into narrow stone channels. Vines loosen from the glass and settle against their supports. The high roof remains wet, though the rain above has nearly stopped. Light gathers gradually among the planting beds, cool and grey rather than golden. A single flower stays open until one final drop reaches its centre. Then it closes without movement in the surrounding leaves. The channels beneath the floor answer with a last soft run of water towards the roots below. A tiled path continues into a workshop smelling of wax, clean cloth, and damp wood. The workshop contains broad tables, soft brushes, folded cloths, glass jars, and small tools arranged with exact care. No restorer waits beside them. Instead, the room tends the museum by itself. A brush moves once across an empty display base and returns to its tray. Condensation withdraws from a glass panel. A strip of leather tightens around a wooden hinge. Water travels through shallow grooves in the worktops, carrying dust towards a covered drain. Nothing is made new. Everything is returned to the condition in which it can rest. A narrow pane of glass clears from the center outward, revealing the next room before mist gathers at its edges again. Beyond the final table, a dark gallery contains familiar rooms behind glass. The gallery holds distant glimpses of places already crossed. The railway waiting room sits behind one arch, with its stove reduced to a red ember. The theatre curtain hangs in deeper shadow. The country house kitchen has cooled, and the apothecary still has ceased to drip. Farther on, snow settles inside the winter forest, while the luminous marsh fades to black water. Each space remains complete, but its movement has become slower. The museum is not erasing the night. It is folding the night away. The reflections on the gallery glass fade until each preserved place seems farther away than memory. A narrow upper cloister begins where the final display darkens. The cloister curves around the central hall, far above the entrance floor. Stone arches open between pale columns, offering brief views into the space below. Rain chains hang almost still beneath the dome. The long pools have lost their colored reflections. Cabinets close softly between the columns, one after another. Across the void, bridges withdraw into shadow as hidden mechanisms release their tension. The museum now seems less like a building ending its work than a creature settling into sleep. Somewhere beneath the stone, the great rain engine completes another slow fraction of a turn. At the end of the cloister, an iron frame door opens onto a roof garden. The roof garden lies between low stone walls beneath the paling sky. Herbs, ferns, and silver grasses bend beneath the remaining water on their leaves. Rain has gathered in shallow channels cut around the beds. Small bridges cross them without touching the soil. The city surrounds the garden on every side, softened by mist and wet rooftops. No sunrise is visible yet. Only a widening brightness behind the clouds suggests that morning is close. Drops fall from the silver grasses into the channels, with enough space between them for silence to return. A path of dark slate leads towards a narrow glass walk spanning the museum roof. The glass walk crosses above the highest dome and service roofs. Rainwater moves beneath its floor in the last thin streams of the night. Below, curved panes reveal the central hall from angles hidden to visitors. Copper channels, roof ribs, and quiet ventilation shafts form a delicate framework beneath the glass. Each step carries you closer to the outer edge of the museum. On one side, the city brightens. On the other, cloud still clings to the rooftops. The glass beneath your feet cools as the water thins and the hidden machinery releases its remaining warmth. At the end of the walk, a circular open court receives the final drops from the sky. The court is surrounded by pale stone and open to the clearing clouds. At its center lies a dark, round basin without fountain or ornament. One drop falls into it, then another, farther from the center. Each ring reaches the edge and causes a nearby lamp to soften. The intervals lengthen. The museum waits without attempting to keep the storm alive. A small stream leaves the basin through a bronze slit and vanishes into the wall. By the time you reach the opposite side, only the sound of water draining beneath the stones remains. A narrow arch opens onto the last balcony above the city. The balcony projects beyond the museum's upper wall. From here, the streets, arcades, roofs, and towers lie beneath a thin veil of morning mist. The rain has almost ended. Water continues to fall from ledges, though nothing new arrives from the sky. Behind you, the museum's dome darkens as its interior lights withdraw. One by one, the highest windows become ordinary glass. The balcony rail is cold beneath the thinning mist, though the stone around it has begun to hold the day's first warmth. A broad exterior stair curves down from the balcony and re-enters the building beside the central hall. The route home has begun. The stair descends through a tall shaft beside the museum's outer wall. Morning light travels with it through narrow windows. Landings pass the upper galleries without opening into them. Behind closed doors, belts settle, water levels fall, and preserved rooms become still. The staircase grows broader as it approaches the public floors. Stone replaces dark timber beneath your steps. No sound follows from the sealed galleries, except the occasional settling of wood and distant water. The final turn reveals the central hall below, pale and quiet beneath the rain-washed dome. The central hall has changed since the night began. The glass dome now holds only a scattered pattern of water. Long pools lie smooth between the columns. The copper rain chains have stopped moving. No bridge glows above them, and no distant gallery offers a path away. The entrance doors wait at the far side of the floor. Behind you, the staircase withdraws into the architecture until it resembles an ordinary wall. The museum has returned the route to its beginning. Only the faint mineral scent of the deepest cistern remains in the air. The inner doors open before you reach them. In the vestibule, the transparent rain token still rests inside the circular hollow beside the frame. Its surface is thinner than before. A narrow stream runs through the surrounding stone and touches its edge. The disc softens into water without cracking. It leaves the hollow, crosses the limestone in a clear ribbon, and returns to the basin from which it formed. The basin fills only long enough to receive it. Then the water drains away, leaving the stone empty and dry. The revolving door begins its final slow turn. The curved glass compartment receives you beneath the bronze frame. Inside the panels, the sealed channels carry only a few remaining drops. The vestibule slides behind. For a moment, the museum's central hall appears compressed into layers of pale stone, dark water, and fading light. Then the courtyard replaces it. The mechanism completes its turn and opens beneath the bronze canopy. Outside, air enters, cool and newly washed. The steps beyond shine beneath a sky that is no longer raining. The hidden courtyard is quieter than before. Water continues to move across the flagstones in shallow currents, but each one is shrinking. Behind you, the museum facade remains complete for several breaths. Then rainwater slips from the columns and carries their edges back into the pale wall. Windows become seams. Steps flatten into stone. The bronze canopy narrows to a dark line and disappears. Nothing collapses. The building simply becomes more difficult to remember until the courtyard holds only its blank wall again. The passage to the arcade waits behind you. The narrow passage rises towards the covered arcade. Rainwater drains from the 3 shallow steps and leaves the brickwork almost black. Beyond the bend, the Victorian roof glimmers with the last drops of the storm. The city has begun to move again somewhere beyond sight. A distant vehicle crosses a wet road. A door closes in another street. From the arcade entrance, the morning appears pale, quiet, and entirely ordinary. Yet every gutter carries water towards places hidden below. You step beneath the open sky as the final drop leaves the glass roof behind. The museum is gone, but the rain has remembered the way.